I just want to bring more awareness to it. And I know some people will be like, Ture, it's not that deep. It is that deep. It is that deep to me. And I do care about it a lot. And I'm going to talk about it. So that's why I started a podcast.
It's funny because a lot of these things you have, this kind of stuff, that's either in my recollection, in my memory, or I jotted a few things down.
Well, this is my first episode of the Goalie Growth Project, and I've already kind of explained to you why and how this came about, and I'm surprised that I haven't done something like this sooner. But as you know, I've been doing a lot of goalie coaching over the past couple weeks, especially, and I feel like I've just been having the same conversation over and over again about coaches that don't really know what to do with their goalies. And I wanted to kind of make a space where I can answer questions that I'm being asked and also talk to people that were a part of my kind of story. And obviously you were the first the beginning of my hockey career. And so I just kind of wanted to have you on as the first person, and I'm so thankful that you were, well, I don't know if you kind of were voluntold, I guess, maybe, possibly, but it just makes sense to kind of start this whole conversation with you. And I'm just excited to be able to kind of go down memory lane and just reminisce on the good times. So before I start talking about me as your daughter, I wanted to just give a moment for you to kind of explain what your hockey career was like and kind of how you got into the game. Well, just briefly, it doesn't have to be anything, but like it's important because it got us to be to the place we were at as father and daughter. So let's hear it.
Okay, I'm going to date myself here with some of these names I'm going to throw out, but when I was a young boy, uh, I had an aunt and uncle that had moved away from town and moved to the Boston area. And that was in the heyday of the Boston Bruins. And we're talking those years when they won the Stanley Cup. And they should have won it in 70, 71, then 71, 72, they won it again. And hockey exploded in the New England area after that. With the success of the Boston Bruins, all the star players, Bobby Orr, John Busick, just to name a couple, and their goalie, Jerry Cheevers. And again, I was a forward at the time, but I was watching this acrobatic goalie, and he kind of struck a nerve with me inside that, wow, this is kind of cool. And I just kind of kept that to myself, and I continued. I was a forward and learned how to skate. And I will interject that the reason I say it like that is I'm of the belief that any kid that's going to be a goalie should have their skating skills under them before.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was a forward. I started paying more attention to pro goalies. At the time, like I said, I'm going to date myself. There was a show on CBS every Saturday, Hockey Highlights. I'm not sure if that's exactly what it's called, but it was NHL highlights from that week. And then I started really paying attention to these goalies. And I'll never forget, I was watching the show this one day, and they showed a highlight of this goalie. And actually, his name was Doug Favell. He was a goalie for the Philadelphia Flyers, and he was the first goalie that had ever painted his mask. And it was just bright orange. The whole mask was orange. And I was like, watching that and the highlights, and everything was cool. And he just made it look like really fun to play goal. And it kind of caught my eye, and I was like, wow. And again, it just kept building inside me. And they started a program in my hometown, Winslow. Finally, at the end of the year, it was like one of the last games of the year, the coach let me try it. And I went in there, I loved it because I wore regular skates, because goalie skates is a whole other thing to try to learn how to skate on. So they put the pads on me. I went out there, regular skates on and stuff. And honestly, I don't remember if we won or lost the game, but I just had a blast. I let up a
And
few
so
goals.
how old were
I
you
was
at that
like,
time?
I was like 12, 13. It's hard to see.
Okay.
Again, at that time, I never came out of the net after that. It was just, I fell in love with it. I didn't have coaching per se, so I had to watch these NHL goalies and try to like emulate what they were doing. And they made it look so fun and so easy, but it found out it was anything but.
Yeah.
And then my hero, the guy I saw play, then from that day on, he was my hero, Bernie Parent. He just passed away recently. I saw him play, and I saw him stand on his head and win 2 Stanley Cups in a row and 2 Conn Smythes. And I was like, this guy is like, he's like the bomb. This
Yeah.
Well, I tried to emulate his play,
Yeah.
and again, it's not always good to do that because,
Yeah.
you have to be your own person too. You have to do your own thing. But that's kind of how I fell in love with it once, and then I just never let go.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a long-winded version, I guess, of how I started.
No, yeah. And so the picture that I've kind of been using to promote this podcast is a picture of me wearing one of your masks in like your jock, basically.
Yeah.
And I can see that I was young at that time. What
Yeah.
was it?
Well, not to cut you off, but while it's in my memory, what I remember
Yeah.
about that, and maybe you'll agree with me, maybe you won't. I don't know that at that like even when you were a little
No.
older than that, it was more me being like a hockey parent.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm not sure if I didn't, I probably pushed it on you a bit when you were young.
That's what I
But
was going to ask.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
just wondering, like, I was obviously very young in that picture. And I'm just wondering because I have a lot of memories of hockey, but I don't necessarily remember at what point I stopped playing player. I don't even remember. I don't remember playing player, I suppose. Like
Oh, yeah,
what
no,
at what
you had your
age?
skate, you had your See, that's the thing. Again, I'm going to get into my opinion of these parents today, these goalie parents. They just throw equipment on a kid, the brightest, biggest, flashiest equipment. They throw the equipment on a kid and say, "Oh, you're going to be a goalie." And at the time, they like, the kid is like, "Wow, this is great, all this life." But when they get out there and figure out it's not so easy, and they can barely move because they haven't even taught them to skate yet. That's my biggest belief, and I tell everybody this. The first thing, they have to have their skating fundamentals underneath them because they will not have the confidence or the ability to be aggressive and do the things they need to do to be a successful goalie if they don't have that edge work under them. And we saw it, and without naming names, we'll remember a time when this parent paid us to go on the ice for 2 hours with his son, and you were my like student, and you were showing this kid what to do as I explained it. And big, tall kid, beautiful equipment, got on that ice, and he was so bound up, he couldn't skate. He had no command of his edges. And after the 2 hours, we get in the locker room, and the father says, "Well, what do you think? Is he going to be a goal?" And I looked at him and I said, "It's not that easy. You're not going to want to hear this, but you have to take a step back, put him in a skating program, put him in a go up through the levels of the power skating and everything, and
Absolutely.
be patient with it." Everybody wants to throw the kid in there, and just it's not like that. It's just not like that. And
Right.
that's a tough one. That's a tough one. And I think even today, probably parents go through that.
Yeah. So I started out as like, I don't know, I don't remember what it's called, mini mite. I don't know what
Yeah,
was I don't
mini mites and into mites. You skated out, and when I was confident that you had your skating skills under you enough, that's when we tried the goaltending stuff. And yeah,
but even after that, I remember that I was still like I essentially did a figure skating program.
yeah, and
Essentially.
yeah, well, again, that was you learned your edges and everything, and then you went into the power skating. You did start out in that.
I started out in that, and then I got to the level that would technically be considered like competitive figure. Like really it would have been like,
Yeah,
okay, she's
yeah,
going to start
right.
figure skating.
Yeah, yeah. It
And
was
then I
just
think I bumped over to Russo's.
my big thing was to, if you weren't in a goaltending capacity, to get you ice time with skating, just
Mhm.
the skating and learning the edges and stuff, and knowing that that's a foundation. If you, I mean, every other sport, running is a given, walking and running is a given, but in hockey, you got to break it down into the basics. And a lot of these goaltending parents and kids they don't want to take that step. They don't want to spend the time, and it's
Yeah.
crucial. You can't,
Yeah.
because once a kid gets thrown into it, and once they get to the a higher level, you can't backtrack on that. You're not going to catch
Right.
up. It's too competitive.
Right. Yeah. And that kind of also goes to the thought of so many people jump to put like the weakest player in the net. And it's
Exactly,
like
and again, it's
take and that's a
another
whole
fallacy.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Let's see. So now I want to move into talking about not necessarily me, but you can use my practices as an example, but the big thing that I'm seeing, and I even heard Greg say it today to his goalie that was coming off the bench to go in mid-game, is like, and I say this respectfully because I don't think that a lot of coaches realize the nuance of the position, but so many times they'll be like, "Okay, just go wait in your net. Just go, we'll be down to shoot on you in a bit." And it's like, well, if you were to calculate all the time that coaches are at the whiteboard teaching and explaining and going over like pivots and circles and C cuts, and you're just having your goalie stand in the net the whole time. Like, I'm trying to help these coaches understand how many small things can be done during that time instead of just having their goalie wait to take shots. Like, the position is so much more than that. So, what I wanted you to kind of maybe touch on is what are the types of things that a goalie coach can be doing in practice even when there's drills going on? Like, what are the small things that you would work on with me during practice to be like, "Okay, no, that was all wrong. You should do it this way next time."
I think that one of the biggest things, and I say this not just from experiences with you, but with my own self, and it's something for me, I wish I would have spent a lot more time on it, and that is puck handling and just confidence around the net handling the puck. And that's something I kind of, again, I didn't have a lot of coaching when I was young, and I was kind of learning on the fly as I went. The extent of the coaching was maybe you'd get a high school kid or a kid that had just graduated and he'd come out on the ice a little bit, but even then he'd basically just be shooting on you. But uh, just working on puck handling around the net, and just the awareness of it. Cause you and I both had the curse of being the right-handed shot, which is kind of doesn't lend itself as much to puck handling, but that's a key area to me. Things in tight. The game, again, going back to your question, the game was so much different. I mean, I'm going back to the mid-70s and stuff. It was stand-up goalies and glove save and a skate save, and two-pad slides and that type of thing. This, getting down on your knees against the post stuff, and that just didn't happen back then. Back then, it was you were taught to stand up and have your outer pad on the bar on the pipe and on the post and that type of stuff. And then you'd kind of explode out to the top of the crease on a shot from behind the net out to the slot. And now they're already down in that now. But again, I'm not going to get into the debates on what's right, what's wrong. I actually think a hybrid type thing worked out real well for a couple guys when Dominic Hasek and Tim Thomas. They were hybrid guys, and I loved watching them play
Yeah.
because the evolution of the shot back in the day with the stand-up goalies, they did studies on shots where these shots were going, and there were so many shots, low shots being scored. That's when the butterfly style. Of course, you had a few. You had Glenn Hall, you had Tony Esposito. They were early butterfly type goalies. Roger Crozier. I mean, again, we're going back to the 60s and 70s, but I still think it's important because the evolution of the
Yeah,
position in my brain, and with
absolutely.
working with you, I always felt like, why can't you do both? Why can't you have a little bit of that incorporate into that? You learned how to use your skates. You learned how to, you made skate saves. You made two-pad slides, a hybrid type thing. These goalies today are so locked into that low butterfly position. And what I see, the shots are coming, they're coming up, they're going upstairs now. Because these
Absolutely.
guys are all prone down low, and they have nothing to explode out to the top of the crease for a shot from behind the net because they're down on there. Even the pads have changed, the skates have changed, everything's changed. But again, it's not to debate what's right and what's wrong. But I think a hybrid. Dominic Hasek, watching him play was just incredible, and also Tim Thomas. But again, working in practice, just flipping the puck in, having the goalie handle it and stuff. A lot of puck handling, and I think that's a lot of it because you get these plays tight in the crease in that area, and a goalie that is confident handling the puck is gonna they're just gonna have more confidence. And I think that's a good use of time in between. I mean, you don't even need a skilled hockey player to be doing that, working with the goalie. You
Right.
just, flip the puck in. What are you gonna do with it? Let's say you've got a good forecheck coming in, and some goalies freeze because they don't know how to handle it. They don't know what to do. Sometimes
Yeah.
that dead time, it's like there's too much time to think almost. And a lot of
Right.
times they make the wrong decision, but and just that type of stuff.
I
Exploding
think
out again, like the other thing is, a goalie can do this on their own. They can be on their post and they can explode out to the top of the crease, those type of things. But just putting a little bit on your goalie as far as, okay, you got to make
Yeah,
this, you know, because I know a coach can't always get free, but if a coach can line somebody up just to come up and do those type of things,
exactly.
is
So
huge. The repetition.
what I'm trying to have more people, more parents, more coaches understand is, for example, if you're going to go do skating drills with your forwards and your defense, there are just as many skating drills that you can be doing with your goalies.
Yep.
If
Yep.
you're going to be doing passing with your forwards and your D, you can also do those same things with your goalies. It's just such a shame. It's such a waste of opportunity, of ice time to just go say to your goalie, "Okay, go down there." If nobody's ever worked with the goalie, they don't know what to do during that time. So it's just time that they're not being developed.
I think what's happening, and actually I'm quite surprised that some of the things you've told me when we've had discussions, some of the things you tell me, it almost sounds like nothing's changed since the since the 70s and 80s, and the position is still kind of, I don't say ignored. They want results. They want results, and the coaches want results in the games, but what have you contributed? I think to a lot of times, again, as we know, hockey's, if not the most expensive sport to get involved in, one of the most. And I think too, what you're seeing is a lot of these parents, they just have the money that, oh, we'll send Junior to this camp and that camp and this camp, but they're still missing out on the valuable practice, the things they could be doing at practice. And I think that's probably what a lot of them would tell you is that, oh, well, yeah, he doesn't get too much work in practice, but we're sending him to this camp or this camp. But not everybody can do that. If you're just catering
Yeah,
to the people with money and the people that can do it, but what about the kid that's got talent and he's being ignored until it's time to,
right. Yeah. I
they
think
want
a big
results in the game, but you got to put the
yeah.
time in practice.
And a big reason that I wanted to try and do this little project is because ideally, what I'm doing with my goalies that I'm working with currently, I'm really trying to teach all of the goalies and then also the coaches kind of like a goalie practice plan, a structure that the goalies should be following every single practice. And if the coaches become aware of this and if the goalies can start holding themselves accountable, then there are these like every days that goalies can be doing in practice to make sure that they are working on XYZ skill. And that is at least better than just saying, "Hey, go down there. We'll come shoot on you in a bit." So that's kind of where all of this is stemming from. But kind of like what you had said about going down on the post versus standing up or being hybrid or being down all the time. Another thing that I just want to point out, and I think you would agree with this, is no matter which goalie coach you go to, everyone's going to have a different philosophy in some way, shape, or form. And that's the big thing that people need to understand is I might show a goalie how to do something. It might be one strategy. It might not be the same thing that a different goalie coach would teach, but that's just why every time you look at a goalie, you're going to notice different things about them. Like they have their own personality, their own unique style. So
Well,
you're
yeah.
not going to hear the same thing from goalie coach to goalie coach. Eventually, it's going to come back to the same general structure, but situationally, there may be differences from one goalie coach to another.
Well, without doubt. And going back to our history, I knew what I was capable of teaching you. I knew what my base was, but I also knew when it was time to turn you over to someone else who had that kind of old school foundation under you, which is what I knew: stick, skate,
Angles.
the basics, angles.
Yeah.
And then when the game started changing and it was starting to be coached differently, I knew when it was time to, okay, you've got to see somebody else who's going to put some of these new techniques into your toolbox. And I don't know, I think it worked out pretty good. But I knew my limitations of what I could teach you. And I knew when it was time for you to, get to that other stuff. But I was always glad that you had that foundation under you of the
Yeah.
basic.
And so then kind of piggybacking off of that, if you were to think of a goalie and think of how much potential they have, but then not have parents that understand the need for continued individualized development, and then just trusting coaches to help develop you, and then there not be anybody kind of giving that goalie the time of day in practice other than, oh yeah, they got a ton of shots today.
Yeah.
Like, that is not developing goalies, and I really just want that message to be shared throughout youth hockey. I don't even care if it's house league. Like, a house league goalie deserves to be developed just the same as a top caliber goalie. The parents are paying the registration fees, which are just getting more and more expensive. The parents are getting them to practice, they're getting them there, and then it's just like, "Okay, Johnny, go stand." Like, I don't think that that's right, and just to point out, there are programs that are having somebody out there to work with the goalies. Like, there are programs that are trying to do it right, but the more and more I talk to friends that are in different areas, different countries, there are still way too many goalies being forgotten about on, like, their little island in the crease. And even today, like, not to name names, but a coach today, I literally heard him when he was having his other goalie in between periods go in. Nobody talked to that goalie. Nobody said, "Hey, what are you working on today?" Nobody said a thing. They just said, Go stretch in your crease." That's not coaching. That
Well,
child is not getting developed.
I can certainly relate to that. 'Cause, being a part of a program that started from the ground up and, in the early days, again, it's just like you say, no one really paid attention to it, and not until high school, I had a father come out, he'd come out from work in his suit and tie still, and he'd come out there, and the extent of the coaching was he'd point to the left, he wanted a two-pad slide, he'd point to the right, he wanted a two-pad slide, he pointed in front, he wanted a poke check, and, doing that for about 10, 15 minutes. And other than that, it was get in the net and take some shots. My high school head coach, he was a football guy who had played hockey. He actually had played in the Waterville program, and he knew the game pretty good. But I'll never forget the first meeting. We were not a sanctioned high school sport till my junior year. After school, he had a meeting. He had the whole team come in, and he had a referee come in, and he had the referee just kind of explain how they call a game and rules, if you will. And it was funny because again, this coach was a highly successful football coach. He'd won 2 or 3 state championships at Winslow, and just very, very well thought of, and had a great reputation. And he was a football guy. Everybody knew that. But what I always gave him credit for, and out of a lot of respect, he knew what he didn't know, and he sought help. So he ended up this was my junior year. He ended up lining up a kid that had just graduated from Waterville High School, who was a very successful goaltender himself. He had him come out and work with me and spend quite a bit of time with me, and it helped me immensely. Uh, Although I'm going to tell a quick story, and it's going to lead into something else. That same junior year, though, I had a pretty good year, and then in the finals, we made it to the finals, and I had a really, really bad game. I really, in my opinion, cost my team the game. I let up a couple bad goals. We had a lead. I blew the lead. We went into overtime, and they scored on me right off the bat in overtime, and I really had a complete breakdown. What I'm going to tie into here is the mental aspect of the game. I would allow myself to get paralyzed with the fear of letting up a bad goal. And that's the one thing that I did not have any kind of support in that at all. It's one thing to have the X's and O's and the fundamentals and all that stuff, but the mental part of the game is huge. And I just thought I had a good glove, good reflexes. I just thought those things could get me through, and when they didn't, and when I let up a bad goal or something, it would affect me way more than it should. And like I said, it was almost paralyzing. Well, the one thing I did do, I had a lot of time to think about it over the off season, and I made up my mind that this is not going to happen again. And again, my coach, seeing the need, he reached out to the Colby College hockey coach and asked if, he could line up his goalie to come work with me. And that made all the difference in the world my senior year. And this kid was from Andover, Mass, and he came out and he worked with me. And again, not just fundamentals, but a lot of mental stuff. He got me in a good place, and it didn't happen again. We won the state championships. It's kind of a funny story. It was about a half-hour drive from Colby College to where we were playing our championship game, and he had a 72 VW Bug. He broke down on the interstate on the way to the game, and a couple of my buddies picked him up and brought him to the game, and that's a true story. And so he was at the game, which Yeah,
gosh.
but
That's so cool.
it I needed that support.
Yeah.
You gotta be mentally tough to be a goalie, and, sometimes it helps to have somebody there to, get you through things. Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't think I ever told you that part of it. Yeah, but that yeah.
No, that's super,
Yeah,
super
the guy
cool.
still tells the story, yeah.
That's so fun. And that's another reason why I love being a goalie coach so much is I do think it's a different type of bond because the position is so lonely and because there are so few coaches on a team that really will kind of delve into trying to help the goalies for the most
I think
part.
would probably be in credit to some of them or a lot of them. It's probably because 'cause they're just afraid and they don't wanna mess the kid up. Just like
No,
just like
fair.
just like softball, pitching in softball.
Mhm.
You're not gonna go work with a kid and mess them up, right? It's the same
Yeah,
idea, and I think
for sure.
coaches
No,
it'll
and
take I think some coaches think it'll take care of itself too, which is wrong, but
yeah, and I don't wanna make it seem like I'm talking down to anybody by any means, I'm just trying to name the situation, and the situation is that is a position that deserves to be developed, and if you don't know how, then maybe we can come up with a way to get some resources available to help you figure out a place to start. Having somebody there, whether it's the guy that would come in his suit and tie or whether it's like Trep from Brewster, didn't know how to be a goalie at all, like just would come out on the ice. And he was a consistent person that was there for me that I knew was going to be there to help me do something. And helping me do something is better than having no help at all.
right, I don't know, is it a case of not enough coaches or money? Because it would be like a volunteer thing or, I don't know,
Hmm.
but I mean, because like I said, you can if somebody has an itinerary to follow,
Yeah.
you can as long as they have hey, remember when we used to do goalie clinics? The
Hmm.
response was enormous. I remember the one we did at Waterville, and it's like, holy, we had kids signing up that weren't even goalies, and they wanted to learn and stuff. And but USA Hockey, I remember they put out a ton of literature on practice outlines and stuff like that. And yeah, but it's I don't know. Like I said, coaches, they either don't want to put the time and effort into it, or they just think it's gonna take care of itself, and that's often not the case.
Because I'm going to be having some of these people on my podcast in the next couple of weeks, how did you ever hear about Fred Quistgard? Was that like just a happenstance? How did he come into our lives?
I had read a lot about him, the Hockey Night in Boston publication. I wanna say that's maybe where I learned of him. Then I'd see all these articles pop up, and again, he's a lot of mental coaching,
Yeah,
which is huge. I mean,
we're going to talk about that a lot when he comes on.
that is so huge. The way he explained angles, recognizing if it's a right-handed shot or a left-handed shot coming on you, the way he broke things down.
And that's the
It was just
nuance I'm talking about. There's so
and
much to the
I
position.
actually, I paid attention to a lot of his stuff. I tried to absorb as much of it as I could.
Something happened that was interesting. I don't know if mom told you. Did she tell you about a tough conversation I had with a goalie?
I don't think no, I don't
Maybe
believe so,
not.
no.
So, the way that this system is working is our organization agreed to have me go out 2 times with each team, and that would be covered kind of complimentary for each team so they could see the value in having a goalie coach, and then it would kind of be up to the team if they wanted to keep having me come. I knew that it was my second time going out with this team, and so really this was gonna decide if I was gonna be going back or not. And I had talked with the coaches and we've been discussing, how can I best help this goalie? This goalie is a great skater, has great size, but when you watch, it was like in practice, just letting up goals and like laughing and just like being like super silly, whatever. So, but the caliber of the team is just so high. And the coaches are like, we don't know what to do anymore. And they're like, we can't get through to her. And they said, would you try talking with her? And so for the first 20 minutes of practice, I went in knowing that I was going to have my session with her one-on-one kind of mid-practice. And so it was the first 20 minutes and I'm watching just shot after shot going high, like going low, and each time just like laughing, thinking it's so funny. And I'm just like, what is going on? Like, what am I
What's the age
watching?
girl?
215 tier 1. So think like me at Brewster, really. And so I'm watching and I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to attack this one. And so I went over to her and I was like, hey, like, what's going on? Like, what do you think of practice? She's like, oh, yeah, like, whatever. And I was like, what I'm going to say is probably going to be a little uncomfortable, but I'm wondering why you're so talented, you have so much potential. It's looking to me like you don't care. Like you're laughing, you're giggling. I'm like, what's up with that? And I put her on the spot to be like, why are you not trying? Like why make it make sense? And she didn't really say much of anything. I don't think she had a response. And I just said, like you're playing high caliber hockey. In order to help your teammates get better, you need to push yourself and you need to push them. And I know everybody like rolls their eyes when someone says it, but the whole practice like you play thing isn't just mental, it's also from like a physical standpoint. Your fast twitch muscles can't develop to be faster if you're not pushing yourself in practice. Like you can't expect yourself to do it in a game if you're not pushing yourself to do it in practice. And I kind of just skated away and we kind of went on with the practice and I did some drills with her and we did some skating stuff. And so in my mind, I'm thinking that's the end. Like she wants nothing to do with me. When practice was over, she said, are you going to be coming back out again? And I said, oh, I don't know. That's going to be like up to your coaches at this point. We did our 2 sessions. Ended up pulling her coaches aside and said, I want Teray to come back. I was shocked. So they pull me aside after and they said, your 2 sessions are up, but she wants you to come back full time. They have officially signed me on to be her full-time goalie coach. And I just thought that was so mind-boggling to be like, what's in this kid's head to seem so lackadaisical, not really have much to say after we have this kind of heart to heart. And then she goes to her coaches and advocates for me to keep coming to work with her. Like, that's really cool. And there's a lot of kids that are hungry to be developed and to have somebody to push them and to work with them, but they might just not know how to articulate it. Or they might just not know how to say, hey, I need help, because all the adults are seeming like, oh, nobody's paying attention to me. They tell me to go down to my crease, just wait for shots. Like, I truly was shocked. And now for the rest of the season through April, their goal is to make it to provincials. And she has advocated for herself to have me there every single practice. And I think that's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, it is. My question is, what's her history though? If I'm going back to what you were saying, how she was behaving in practice, what's her history? The funny thing is there's different buttons to push too. What I would say with her, lack of a better term, silliness, that lends itself though to not like feeling pressure in my book. What she
And
needs to work
let me
on,
stop you right
it's it's
there.
it's more of a
Let me
work ethic.
stop you right there. It's a work ethic because do you think she has a second goalie on her team? Do you think she
Okay.
has a
Yeah.
second goalie
Yeah.
pushing her?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
She's
Yeah.
the only goalie.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that's
So,
why I say, right, exactly. That's a very hard thing to coach is
but how beautiful is it that she went to her coaches? Because on the flip side, it could have just been like, oh, thank God Teray's gone. She's not coming back. But how cool is it that she was like, oh, wait, I want
no,
Teray to come back again.
I think it's great. I just hope that she doesn't think that having you is going to make everything better without a work ethic. You know what I'm
I
saying?
don't I don't think she would because
Right.
I've done this. I've skated her. I mean, I'm proud. I think it's a good first step. It's a lot better than coaches coming and saying, "Hey, we really need you to keep coming back because we cannot get through to her." I would much rather have a kid that wants me to be there than like I've had some other goalies this week that I say one thing and like they roll their eyes and like avoid eye contact with me the rest of the practice. So I don't know, but I'm looking forward to it, and if her goal is to make provincials, then my goal is for them to make it to provincials. What was your favorite part of being a goalie parent?
Wow, that's the pride of teaching your daughter to be successful in
Yeah.
something that you love. Gave me a way to relate to you.
Yeah.
Sometimes, sometimes good, sometimes a little bit trying.
Yeah.
Like the time when you were with Pee Wee, we had the whole team over to look at film, and every time I broke the film down to critique you, you kind of melted down on me. Didn't like that too much, but yeah,
Yeah.
using the old film doesn't lie. But yeah, no, it was just fun having you getting to watch you do something that I did and
Yeah.
be successful at it, and yeah, it gave us a
For sure.
good bonding.
Being able to skate and move and navigate the equipment and all of those things. And that also circles back to if you don't have somebody working with your child in practice or at least focusing on them, getting them to move, getting them to navigate their crease. Like right now, something that I've been doing with a lot of my goalies, and I feel like they look at me like I'm crazy, is I'm having them start on one post and go around the back of the net, like literally like C cut around the back of the net to then hug the other post and then go out and do some butterfly work just to have another rep of skating and stuff.
Yeah,
And they're like, why do I have to? It's not about positioning
right.
at that point. It's about move your body, get out into a butterfly with momentum, get up, get back to your post and do it all over again. Like it might look silly, it might not look like the flashiest thing, but it's helping them get more comfortable with their edges, and that's what a lot of goalies today need.
Yeah, I always liked the analogies that Fred Quistgard would use, like the beach, get all that stuff with the
Yeah.
crease and the beach. Get on the beach, get out of the ocean, the blue or the
Yep.
crease, just for mental
Yeah.
markers and just things like that. And sometime if that flashes through your head a couple times in a game and it makes a difference in something that you do, that's huge. But those mental
Yeah.
points again, and yeah, it's good stuff. And
Yeah.
I don't think there's on any one way, like you said. Everybody's
No.
a little different in their approach. I think if you can put just a whole collection of things together, because really it's what you do in that instant to make the save that you need to make. And the more things,
Absolutely.
I like I said, the more tools you have in your box, that's the better. Because at
Mhm.
the end of the day, it's all the coaches really care about it. Did you stop the puck? Not necessarily how you did it.
Absolutely.
As I still think there's room here and there for a odd skate save or a two pad slot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fair.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think so too.
Every time I see these goalies get burned up high when or they leave something, they leave a little triangle between their pad and the post because they're down. It's like, wow, that was too easy. And then they'll
Mhm.
turn around and make a 10 bell save. But boy, that one that got in, that soft one in a one or two goal game is huge. I guess
Absolutely.
the last thing I would say, as far again, like I said, the mental part is so huge. An example to me would be, then this is somebody everybody's heard of because he's won the last two Stanley Cups. Sergei Bobrovsky, Florida Panthers. This is just a real quick story, but I think it really resonates. He was with the Philadelphia Flyers from 2010 to 2012, and he had decent stats, but I will never forget. I think it was 2012, just before he exited the Flyers organization. He had an infamous meltdown. Basically, he said, "I can't do this anymore. I can't play. I can't play in the NHL. I can't. I just can't stop the puck. I can't do it." He had what I call a mental breakdown. He ended up signing with the Columbus Blue Jackets. He played for them, I don't know, 5 years. And his stats were always pretty good. Save percentage right around 900, goals against average, below 3, 2 point something. And of course, we all know how it's ended up with 3 appearances in a row and 2 Stanley Cup wins. And my point is, I have to believe there was some intervention when he left the Flyers and when he signed with the Columbus Blue Jackets. somebody got involved in that, and again, that's why I say
Mhm.
the mental thing is huge, and that's just a little kind of a
Yeah.
something to put into that. He had to
And
have
by
somebody,
yeah.
and he's still, at 30, 36 years old, he's still, top 5 goalie in the world probably.
Yeah, it's those mental blocks where you're fighting the puck, you're making your job so much harder. The visualization of it all, it's more than just believing in yourself, but I would agree that there was a lot of off ice work that was done to be able to do that. The Coach Quistgard, I remember one time, I couldn't believe it. He drove all the way down to Henniker and he told me today we're having an off ice mental session. And I'm just like, "You just drove all the way here and we're not gonna go on the ice?" But, like, to him, it was so important to be able to work on those things, and sometimes it's not about what I need to do on the ice. There's no point in going on the ice today. I've done that a million times. I have to do stuff off the ice, and I'll never forget that, just being like, "You just drove all the way here to talk to me?" There's so much more to the position than just getting in there and stopping the puck. And I just want to bring more awareness to it. And I know some people will be like, Ture, it's not that deep. It is that deep. It is that deep to me. And I do care about it a lot. And I'm going to talk about it. So that's why I started a podcast. So I appreciate you. I know this isn't the most natural of things for you to be doing in your garage, but I really appreciate it.
Probably would have had
And
more
I
confidence if I'd have worn my mask through it all, right? That's one of the
Do you
other
have
things I
it?
like.
Do you have it? Oh, I thought
What's
you were gonna put it on. I was looking at my mask. I told everybody the story of how I kind of created this last night. I would say a lot of people say that goalies are a little quirky. I feel like you have to be to wanna stand in front of things and be shot at, but I think that our pads and our helmets and all that stuff, we need something to keep us company in our crease, and so having stuff that we love, it makes it a little less lonely, I guess. Jackie is gonna be I don't know when she's gonna be coming on, but, she helped fund this, so I wanted to show her that I still have it.
Jackie's still one of my favorite people.
Jackie is the best. Jackie's the best. Chat with Coach Quistgard, on Monday.
I'll be a little more polished than this, I'm sure.
No, no, but it's important for me because my goal eventually is to have outside people outside of my story, but to set the framework, to set the scene of why I got to a place where I'm so passionate about all of this. I wanted everybody to see those players for me, and those players are you, Trep, Coach Quizcard, Jackie.
Sounds
That's
good.
who. Yeah. Okay, Dad, I am off to the arena. Hopefully, we do
Yeah.
not get smoked again.